streaming live on YouTube.
Is that what it says? I think we're on my end, it hasn't confirmed.
Yeah, it says recording YouTube up in the left corner, live.
Yeah. Yep.
I think it's very impressive you can do this at all, Ryan. Thank you for doing it. It's very mystical to me.
I can do it, but can I do it well? It's the question I think always that we have to ask. All right, Marguerite, now we are on, it's confirmed we're on YouTube. You can call the meeting to order.
All right, it is Friday, the 19th of August, 2022. It is 11 a.m. and the meeting of the South Row Library Board of Trustees is now called to order. And the first agenda item is to review and approve the minutes of July 15th. Does anyone have emendations or corrections?
I have just a quick question. At the top of page 2,
Yeah.
The number 125,000. Am I confusing things here? I have this recollection that the number was 75,000 before.
I believe it's offset by the grant amount. I think 125K is the total, right? So when you go for planning and design money, it's part of at the current time, it's part of a grant cycle. I don't know. It seems like maybe that might be updated or revised in the future.
I thought the town came up with 75 and the state came up with the rest.
I think that's my understanding, Marguerite, as well.
So it's 125 in total, but we have to do 70. We have to do 75 to show that we mean business. Right?
And also, if there's like additional things you need that are related to planning and design that are beyond that, that's like the target amount that the state suggests, because they find that people typically need around that. But every community is different, they know. So, you know, some people need less than that. Some people often need more. I think if you're doing like in-depth environmental testing for LEED certification but that's a good note, David, is that isn't, it's the total amount. Should you want to keep that as is in the minutes, or should we come up with some clarification?
That's fine. I just, I understand now. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to clarify it, and I don't think we discussed the two parts of that money in the meeting, so I guess it couldn't be in the minutes because we didn't talk about it. Any other emendations or corrections? In attendance, I'm gonna call Jane the vice chair, not the assistant chair. Is that okay with you, assistant chair? Right.
I missed that.
Oh, it says Chair Marguerite Landry, Assistant Chair Jane Davis. I think she's
You're
vice
correct.
chair.
You're correct. It should read vice chair, so that has to be corrected.
Yes, and I would like to ask the board. Some meetings, when they're held, a member who's not present is noted as absent, and their name is given so that you have all the names on the board or committee. Do you want to do that with our minutes, or do you want to leave it just if someone isn't there, they're not mentioned?
It might be more clear to mention it, because then, I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen it mostly mentioned. So I'm going to suggest that we start doing that if it's okay with everybody.
Yeah.
Just so we've got all the names. Is that all right? Okay. So then I would add an absent : Janet Maney. Is that right? And that is my only thoughts on it. Other input? Okay, do I have a motion to accept as amended?
I motion.
Okay, that's Amy. And do I have a second?
I second.
All right. That is Jane. Trustee Maney?
I was absent.
She's not going to vote on this.
So Janet, you're welcome to abstain from the vote, but you can still vote on the minutes because it's just the record of the meeting. If you don't feel comfortable doing so, that's
No, it's okay. I watched the video of the meeting and whatever. So okay, aye.
Okay. Good. Sorry, I had to shut the door. All right, so I'm glad that's clarified because yes, you did watch the video, so there you are. And Trustee Davis.
Aye.
Trustee Reagan.
Aye.
Trustee Estani,
Aye.
Trustee Ekberg.
Aye.
All right, so unanimously passes. The next agenda item is the director's report. Ryan, can you fill us in?
Or- I did have one question about the minutes.
Oh, all right.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just for clarification for Mariana or for anybody in the future who does the minutes, if we have a member who has to leave partially through the meeting or comes on after the meeting has started, do we just list them as present because they were present for part of the meeting? Or do you want to discuss this next month? I'm sorry to hate you with this, but that's going to be a question that comes up because you know how we have some people who, you know, they have like a doctor's appointment, they come on later, or they have a meeting and they have to leave
I
early.
suggest that we ask Jim Hegarty and then
Okay,
discuss
let
it
me
next one.
let me just close the gap on that and then report back on the next meeting because
Okay.
I think that will be, I can already anticipate that's going to be a question from Mariana, which is a good one. So I
Yeah.
think we should just address how to handle that because if we have somebody who's like in half the meeting, that's
Yeah.
not clarified if because they're present and
Yeah,
absent.
good point. I think Jim will give us the answer and we'll just do whatever he says. How's that?
Okay.
We'll take our advice of counsel. All right, Ryan, what do we need to know?
Well,
Any
I have a-
questions?
I have a question, yes. I thought that we already decided how to fund the picnic bench outside. that we
Yes, so I rewatched the meeting and I do not think we ever explicitly stated that it was coming out of state aid funding. So
Okay.
to clarify, because you guys did take a vote
Yeah.
on paying for it, but we didn't, Jane, thank you for starting us off with the most important issue. So I think no bills have been paid at this point because the lead time on the picnic bench is actually a couple months, I guess. So, you know, supply chain issues have helped us with this piece. So as long as there's no objections, am I good to pay this out of state aid funding?
Yeah, we already voted on it, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and did you order the green one?
Yes, I did. The green one is the one that's coming. So Jane, that's also a good note. Jane and I did touch base after the meeting and we selected the green picnic bench, which I think was the right decision. So thank you, Jane.
Yeah, we did that after the meeting. And I don't know if this fits in here, but there's a new hose cart also outside that with a few emails and it went through. DPW paid for it, so nobody's the gardeners or the library didn't take the hit. It wasn't huge, and Chris Leroy installed it and it's great. So
Yeah.
everyone's happy.
Yeah,
There were
I
lots
think,
of complaints about the hose and no one was putting it back right, and then you don't need to hear all this, but I just want to say a positive note in that it couldn't have gone any more smoothly with Karen Galligan and Chris Leroy, and it's there, and it's working perfectly.
Good to know. All right. And that is actually part of the director's report, right?
So,
Technically, aren't we there with the?
no.
facilities, yeah.
No, a DPW provided a replacement
Oh, right.
retractable holster
Retractable
for the
holster,
exterior
yeah.
water.
Oh, yes, I did. It is part of the
It's a
director's.
lovely,
report,
it's a lovely box and it has a crank so that there's none of this confusion about whether it's retractable and you have to pull it just right. It's not fancy. Everyone can use it and it's working.
Well, I mean, DPW did a lot of work, but Jane also did help coordinate this, and we made sure that I think the hose that was originally purposed would have, like, if the purchased one would have been great for like a private residence. The problem is that we're, you know, a municipal facility, and I think that just it was never designed to be used as much as it was over a multi-year period. So. We definitely, I think, have resolved that. I'm not saying the new retractable case is going to last forever. I'm sure we'll have to talk at some point about, but it will last longer than the other one. You did a great.
No,
great job.
it went smoothly, and I have to say 3 town organizations worked beautifully together to get this done. So it was great. I appreciate it. And Ryan, of course, you helped it move along. Anyway, we can move
And
on.
thank you to the DPW, and
Yeah.
thank you, Jane, for sorting this this logistics
Very
out.
important item.
Well, hoses can be sources of friction, as we know.
Well, lots of different parties were using it. And so now this is very user friendly, so.
Good, excellent. All right. Thank you.
So I think I'll circle back to the budget just to look at the facilities and DPW items. We may have a future request. I'll just do the one IT really quick, is that there may be a future request for a printer for the assistant director office downstairs. Kim has requested a new printer, so Jay and I are looking at different options. Kim has the oldest printer in the building. It works, but it's very slow. And she's mentioned this to me. We've always had to kind of work on, sometimes it does break down and we have to try to troubleshoot and fix it, and it usually takes a couple weeks. So we just think it might be the right time to look at replacing it. So we'll let you guys know what we come up with. We were asking Jay to look at vendors he works with, to come up with some options.
Probably hard to get the dot matrix printing paper too, right, Ryan?
Yeah. It's like slightly a step above that. We need something that can print labels downstairs. So I'm sure that, I don't know if you guys have heard the stories too of the newer printer that we purchased. It works fine, but when it's printing labels now, it makes a very loud noise. So that has been somewhat disruptive. So we've tried to work with IT on that. They're here, half the time they're here for printer help. And we don't know why it's making this noise. We're still investigating the issue. So the entryway, let me give you a quick update on that. They are not 100% done, but they are, I would say, like 85% done. The ADA switch was reinstalled this morning. They have confirmed the height is appropriate for the ADA rules. And I think the only piece they still have to do is to paint the pillars. We're trying to see if facilities can do that this afternoon. If not, they will come back early next week and then it will be repaired.
Ryan, does that switch run with electrical lines into the pillar, or is it done wirelessly?
It is through, I believe, through an electrical line.
In the pillar, all right.
But I will have to double check. I don't know that for sure. I don't
Well, it
think
doesn't matter. I just wondered how complicated it was to reinstall it. So basically
I don't believe they're wireless systems. I think
Yeah.
there's too much that could go
they're
wrong.
wired. So
I think-
basically it's exactly the same as it was before, only new.
Yeah, well, they completely replaced the pillars from
Right.
scratch.
But it's the same
So-
design, right?
Correct. It's exactly the same. So I know that at one point we might want to update that, but this was not the time. This was a repair and replace job. The top awning is exactly the same because they use new support beams for that. So that wasn't even updated. That's not getting
Mhm.
painted.
Mhm.
But right now the planter and the little stone statue that's directly adjacent to the mailbox, those are displaced because they need this space to work. So we didn't have to close. We were able to open some of the emergency entrances this week. The disruptions were minimal, I have to say. So
Alright.
facilities did a really good job of working with the library to maintain service to the public. So we appreciate them for that. Sorry, the quilt, there's an open ticket. They haven't had time since they've been here for the door. So the quilt is coming. I can't give you a time frame because facilities can't get back to me on that yet until they know when they can do work. I still haven't met with Chris Leroy. I will say I tried to use super glue to super glue the frog's glasses back on. Guess what, everyone? Bad idea, and it didn't work. So I definitely need DPW help, I would say, on trying to do it. The only way I can see the glasses being put back on is if it's somehow welded back on.
Can I just jump in here quickly? As a person involved in the appearance of that frog in the first place, I would suggest that we just forget about the glasses and just leave him without the glasses, because the amount of time and energy these glasses are taking up, and you know, whatever they do, some kid is going to pull them off right away. So let's pretend he's had LASIK surgery and he doesn't need his glasses. How's that?
I
Can
think
I-
I think the statue also looks great without the glasses, to be honest.
Yeah, can we just leave him
So
without the glasses? Maybe we can put a hat on him for Halloween or
the
something.
glasses will be put in indefinite storage, so we'll still have them at some point in the future. I would say once I get my welding certification, we can do it, but it's beyond my skill set.
End up melting the whole frog head, probably.
I
That's a-
swear I didn't bring this up to get off the hook, but I
No,
appreciate
no,
you,
no, no. I
Marguerite.
think you've gone beyond, above and beyond on the glasses, and I know DPW's been there like 3 times, and it's sort of like, okay, that's the way the frog wants to be. No glasses, there it is.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then let's go to the facade restoration. I'm sorry, did I cut someone off?
Oh, this is Kim. I was just going to say, could this be a potential project for a student at a vocational school that?
I was gonna say Assabet has metal fab, Kim, so yes.
Yeah, I'm happy to explore that issue. If we can find
But I
this.
would prefer, as the person who donated the frog, to not have the glasses on.
Yeah, I think it's fine without. I'm just saying if you're looking for somebody, I'd go to the metal fab at
Right.
Assabet and talk to the instructors, but I agree with Marguerite. Well, leave well enough alone.
Okay,
Fine with me.
that's a good suggestion, though.
Thank you. For the next frog statue, we'll keep this in mind, but this is why the one with the glasses was on sale.
Well, now it's easy to refer to them too on the property, because there's the frog statue with glasses and the frog statue
Frog
without.
statue without glasses,
Like
right?
that helps, that helps a little bit.
Got it.
So on the facade restoration project, we did receive the final bill. So far, we have not had we've had rainfall and water has not come in the building. So that's the good news.
Yay.
We have not, John would like, as many of you are probably now aware, because I do like to remind everyone, September is the month where we get the most rainfall in Massachusetts. These are the things you learn when you manage a building that has had flooding issues. So we are hoping that we will get some really rainy days in September, and that will essentially be like a stress test on the roof. The roof has been tested. We're pretty confident that no water is going to get in, but John would like to just be like 100% sure before putting the tile back in. So far, so good.
You never thought you'd be hoping for rain, did you?
Yeah.
It's so bad. Oh, well, all right, let's hope.
I don't know, do we want to briefly touch Janet at this point, or do we want to wait until later to talk about our meetings with the Preservation Worcester and with the town council?
Why don't we wait and
Yeah.
just
The ball is rolling, that's all.
Okay. Why don't we say the ball is rolling, because
right,
that's
the ball is rolling. That's good.
So Janet and I have been to several meetings. We have the preservation restriction is currently being drafted by town council, so we're waiting to hear back.
Okay, how about the library assistant job search? Are we ready for this?
No, we have to go to the budget and the director's report. So,
All right.
so Jane helped me out there by bringing up the state aid issue. Does anybody have any questions about the expense report? Because we can dispense with that if you guys are okay. We're still pretty early in the year. We have spent almost all of the subscriptions amount because we get hit with annual bills for a lot of those. Right at the beginning of the year. So some of them, we can't control that, because the billing cycle started in the middle of the month, or we're working with other entities. That's why we're going to get bills a little bit later on. But you can see a lot of that money has been spent right away.
Right, and it's like that every year, just about. So
Yeah.
Yes.
I really tried to get everybody on the July cycle. So we did as many people as we could. There was the one bill, I will say, admittedly, that I forgot was the constant contact newsletter. So we were slightly late with that. We might not be able to send out a newsletter for a week or two while they wait to get the check. So if you guys don't,
was that 600 something dollars, or
Yeah.
was it eight? Yeah, 686 something.
The bill has been paid, but there was like the past due for like July too. So I'll be proactive about that. I made a note for next year. It's hard making notes that you have to check in a year, but that's what we have to do for the annual.
I think you're forgiven for that, Brian, considering the 6,000 things you have to take care of every day. I don't think that's going to be major.
Okay, so for the fall closures,
Mhm.
I did not send you the most important closure date that we have to talk about. So, in part due to Amy Townsley's departure and several planned staff vacations, I now do not have enough people to be open on the Friday and the Saturday of Labor Day weekend. The rotation normally would be me and then Amy and another full-time staff member on the Friday, and then the team on Saturday, which there's 2 full-time people, not 1. A lot of our part-time people are also going to be away on Labor Day weekend too, I learned this year. So I have talked to a lot of my contemporaries in other communities. I know we were just closed for 2 months on Saturdays, but I wanted to ask you guys if you're okay with me and the full-time staff who's available to staff the Friday, which I believe is, let me just look at the dates. That's the 2nd. And then we would be closed on the Saturday because I don't have enough staff to be open.
It's
That's
okay with me because we don't have any choice, basically, right?
I think it kind of makes sense anyway. Like, I mean, I know you just do July through August, but Labor Day kind of caps the summer. So the end of the summer.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
I think most places that are closed for the summer open after Labor Day.
Yeah, I think so too. So I think
Yeah.
it wouldn't hurt to do
makes
that
sense.
every year,
Okay.
but especially this year when you don't have anybody.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it's fine also. I mean, I think you keep a pretty tight staff to keep it efficient and, to be cost effective. So, when somebody happens to leave, it's not like we have a ton of other choices.
Right, exactly. It does point to the how shall I say, the staffing situation being extremely efficiently done, Ryan, because I don't know how you do it, frankly.
Well, this isn't a commentary on Amy Townsley's departure either. It would have been difficult because of all the staff vacations too. So, I have told them in future years, if this becomes an annual issue, that we'll revisit whether or not we need to start looking at hierarchical vacation approval. Because if I have all these part-time people and all these full-time people on vacation, then we don't have enough people to staff the library, and that's a bigger problem. So I think the 3rd will be closed. We'll reopen Saturdays on September 10th,
Mhm.
and then the rotation will start then. The other reason why I put a big list of closing dates this year is because I always think this is a good time to revisit
Yeah.
closing. This is exactly kind of the issue that popped up with Labor Day too, is that if the library has to close on a Friday, we split the full-time staff. So we have 6 members of the full-time staff, including me. I'm one of those people. And we split them. If they work Friday, they don't work Saturday, and vice versa. So with Veterans Day this year in November does fall on a Friday, which in the past, what we've done is also close the following Saturday. So those dates are listed in that list. That would be the 11th and the 12th. We also, the SAP gives 2 vacation days for Thanksgiving, and it explicitly lists them as Thanksgiving Day and the day after Thanksgiving. The day after Thanksgiving is a Friday, so then that affects it 2 weeks later. So we're closed the 24th, the 25th, and the 26th. We also have a fantastic holiday schedule where Christmas and the New Year's Day holidays fall on a Sunday. So the observed days are on Mondays typically, and there is a Friday, Saturday closure again because of Christmas. So I'm just making you aware of all of those. If we want to revisit it, there'll be kind of a reminder. I think as we get closer to those dates on when the library is closing. But like I think it was kind of explicitly said before, I don't have a lot of choice about this, is that it's just, I have to give, if we give a Friday off because of a holiday, I have to give holiday pay to the full-time employees too.
So
So this-
Ryan, here's my question, and I think you've done brilliantly with this. If you're abducted by aliens, is there anyone else in the library who can do this scheduling besides you?
Kim is my backup. So Kim, as the assistant director, Kim is aware of this. And I will say, Kim and I went over the holiday closure, and all of this made sense in our review. She also helped me kind of revise the fall schedule for the staff based on the availability. Kim will tell you, we had to sit down and we had to really hash this out for
I
over
can
an hour.
imagine.
It's
When
it's really painfully,
And this was before we knew Amy Townsley was leaving. We did it
Right.
literally the week before she resigned.
Yeah.
And then I think we did such a good job in that meeting that while we're working to replace like Amy's position, that we'll be okay, at least for a little while.
well,
So-
thank you, and thank you to Kim for doing this, but it really points out that it's a really, it's a really stretched thin schedule for everybody.
I had a question, Ryan. How busy are you generally on the Saturday of Labor Day?
I don't think it's gonna, we get people anytime we open, but this was part of the reason why we started, we used to try to be open with like myself and like part-time people on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And it was a very moderate amount of people.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we're maybe talking about like 5, maybe 6 people the whole day.
Yeah.
For a Saturday, that's very low. I would anticipate Labor Day would be a similar situation. I talked to the Westboro director, and she also has to close Saturday, September 3rd for the same exact issue. There's just so many people out on vacation
Yeah.
that they have to be open.
Well, I was just wondering if it makes sense, and that's not a decision right now, but to extend the summer Saturdays through Labor Day in the future, because if you're opening for 3 people, that's certainly not cost effective. So, or 5
Yeah,
people.
I
And it
agree. Amy.
doesn't-
I think we
Yeah.
should look at that.
It doesn't always fall. The Saturday doesn't always fall on that weekend, depending on how the calendar
Yeah.
shapes up. Is that sometimes it's kind of the end of the August kind of coincides with the weekend. So I mean, I think next year, if this becomes an issue again, we'll have a brief discussion, if that's okay. This is helpful to get your feedback so that I just don't want you to think I'm just closing the building, like, without seriously considering the repercussions of that.
You
Because
have
of-
not heard the word slacker from any of us, Ryan, really. I wonder if it would make life easier if it was just a policy that we open regular hours after Labor Day weekend and just
I agree, but
leave it like that.
something to look at in the future, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's your decision, but it seems like, as Amy said, it feels like part of summer. So there we are.
The rest
what
of the
are the-
director's report is pretty self-explanatory,
All right.
so I think we can dispense with that unless there's any questions about the programs or the grants.
A question on Amy Townsley. Is there to be a little something or other for her before she leaves? And is that just for staff? Or can we be invited too?
There,
did you
there
send
wa-
something
there-
out?
Yeah. So there was a little something, and it was last
Oh.
night at 5:30, but if you guys would like, Amy is at the library today, and she will be, I believe, upstairs this afternoon. So if you want to stop by and you want to say goodbye, we did get kind of a gigantic cake for her. I think it's vanilla and chocolate. It was half and half. So we have plenty of leftover cake. There were some people who couldn't come until today. So Marguerite was able to stop by. I think Kim stopped by earlier in the week, Kim Regan, to thank her for her service. So I know I'm putting you on the spot, but if any of you have time this afternoon and you want to stop by and just wish Amy well, Amy will still be coming in as a patron. Her kids really like the programs here. And then, she's got one of the girls is becoming old enough to go to the teen programs. So we really want to make sure we keep her on board. So I think you will still see Amy, especially, if you pop by at different events. So it's not goodbye forever. It's just goodbye to her on the staff. And we're very proud of her in taking this role and, you know, excited for her to continue her library career.
And she's also coming up later on in the agenda because she did the diversity audit, which we want to talk about also. But can we move on to, speaking of staffing, the library assistant job search?
Yes, so we had 21 applicants.
Wow.
The period has closed. We
That's
do-
great, isn't it?
Yes,
Interest.
a lot of interest. So not everybody really fits the qualifications. So I think whittling it down will be easier than in some other instances when we've had a job opening. I will say there are definitely some candidates we're excited to follow up with. Vanessa, Kim Ivers, and I are going to be the search committee. And we're going to look at doing the interviews probably starting September 7th.
All right. So do you have a higher date that you think is reasonable?
I'd like to give you a recommendation if all the interviews go as planned by the September trustees meeting
All right.
is my goal.
And
We
that's
did
gonna
have
be-
an internal applicant for the senior library assistant position too. So we will be also, I think, interviewing that individual first. And then if we decide to proceed with appointing a second senior library assistant, that recommendation will also be at the September trustees meeting.
All right, so that's the 16th. Good. We're all very excited to hear what you've got this. I'm sure to hear our new person. So thank you for that.
It'll really be potentially 2 appointments. It'll be the
Mhm.
you know, the internal applicant to senior library assistant, and then the new library assistant who will be an outside hire.
All right. Good.
Does that make sense to everybody? I know I did send a big long email,
So,
but the
more
period
work-
is
more work
closed.
for Ryan, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the good news is, as of Wednesday, because we're getting 2 to 3 a day for two full weeks, people did take advantage of that 2 weeks. I was getting them up until the last day. So it has officially closed. If anybody applies at this point, they've missed the deadline. If we do not find a qualified applicant, we will have to reopen the search. And then I think the hope is to do it by the October meeting if we have to reopen it. I'll be able to advise you in October. But I think we have at least I would say 3 to 4 people we really want to seriously talk to. So it's likely we'll have a recommendation for appointment in September.
Good. And that was advertised on the MBLC website only?
Yep,
How-
as well as at the townhouse, as
Yeah.
well as on the front page of the library website. So I think we got a lot of applicants because I made it very easy to find.
Well done. Yep. That's fabulous. Okay, anything else we need to know or any other questions about that? No. All right. Now, for some reason, number 4 is the expense report, but we're sort of been there, done that, right? Is there anything else you want to say about that? Yep, okay.
Any questions about the budget thus far from anyone?
Nope.
Okay.
Feels under control. Okay, now the ARIS report submission. I was telling Janet on the phone this morning that is so time consuming, but it's so informative. Oh my word. How much data did you put together for that and how long did that take?
I got a lot of help. I will say the ARIS report is also not complete. One of the statistical, I think there was data about the computer uses that wasn't, it was slightly, there was like a incorrect thing. There was a 5 because I had put the number of public computers we have twice. And one of the questions was number of uses. The data there is actually that it gets used 12 times a week. I looked it up. I did the reporting module yesterday. The one last piece I have to finish on it is they asked a new question about passive programs. So they give a couple examples of that. Like if you have to-go bags, which are very similar to the free book bags that we have here that patrons can take, as well as the story walk. That was used as an example. We have to measure the amount of passive programs we do, which Kim, Mariana, and I sat down. We met about it earlier this week. That was relatively easy to do. We then have to estimate and extrapolate how many people are using the passive programs. As you can imagine, that is a question we can't really fully answer. We're not at the library 24/7 as much as we'd like to be, and we can't anticipate how many people would be walking and using a story walk when we're not here. So Kim came up with kind of a scheme on how to do it. The only thing we could really measure 100% was the free book bags, because we had a number of ones that we completed, and then it was the number that people had taken.
That seems like an invitation to inflate. Like, I mean, not on your part, but just to say, oh yeah, well, you know, how do you know who's using the story walk? I drive by, you know, in the evenings when you're closed, and there are plenty of people walking around over there. You know what I mean? Like, and I guess the chess set also counts. So unless you're looking out the window, they
So we only built the chess set in July of this year. So you are correct, is that it counts, but it will be counted as a passive program for next year. It was also a little frustrating because they didn't tell us this until we opened up the ERIS report for this year. So we could have tried to do a better job of tracking passive program statistics if we knew this was going to be a question we had to answer. But this happens in ERIS every year, where they want to try to capture data that libraries are doing. A lot of people are doing passive type of programs because of COVID as a response. And
Right.
then, you know, things like the restoration of the puzzle table, having public chess. These are all things that we do that kind of count that weren't previously counted in ERIS. So I think it's positive that they're trying to do that. I get why they're trying to do it. It just, I will say, I didn't have ERIS fully done because that threw us a little. We had to spend extra time coming up with those statistics. But I did want to, I thought it was important to send you guys this. I don't do it every year. I might start, so you guys have the data right in front of you. I can give you the final copy of ERIS if you want. Marguerite and I have to sign it and file it next week. So that I wanted just to give you a heads up that that's occurring. There's also a companion financial report. I have to do that next month. So that it's a smaller document. It's much harder to put together because I need a significant amount of data from John Parent on like money that facilities spend on the library. I have to get data from Brian Ballantine about benefits because that's part of the questions that are asked. And then I also have to work with Prudence Webster about money the Friends have contributed annually. So not all the data comes from me. It comes from a lot of parties. I will say on ERIS, part of it is a tremendous amount of work. I did spend a lot of hours on it this year, as I always do, but I have to sing the praises of one Miss Carol Logan in particular. Her coming up with the monthly database statistics report made this so easy on that piece, which always takes me a lot of time. And then she was also tremendous in helping Kim and I track the program statistics. So Kim still tracks all the children's program statistics, but Carol did everything else. And I have to say, you know, without Kim and Carol this year, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Mariana also helped me with a lot of the data entry on the holdings information and some of the circulation information we get from CW Mars. So this is the first year I can really say that ERIS was a team effort, and it helped my capacity to get it done. So our staff is so good here, and this is a good example of that in codified that you can view.
There it is. Yeah, because it is completely without glamour, the ERIS report. Sorry to say that, but anyway.
That's one of those unseen things, like we keep saying, smooth sailing on top and pedaling furiously on the bottom.
Pedaling seriously on the bottom. There you go. All right, so thank you for that. How about the review of pending library capital items? Unless there's other questions on the ERIS report? No, okay. How
If
about
anybody needs to go over ERIS one-on-one, or you have questions about the data points, please reach out to me. Let's leave it there, Marguerite, just
Yeah.
because I know not everybody has looked at the nitty-gritty ERIS before. It is the way that the terminology and some of the data is presented is confusing because it is a very sort of standardized document. So just let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to sit down and go over it with anybody one-on-one.
Well, ARIS is what is used by the Library Commission to get library funding from the state, right?
It's also how state aid is dispensed. So the interlibrary loan numbers in particular are very important because that directly goes into our state aid calculation,
Right.
which affects the amount we get from the state every year.
So in other words, the more interlibrary loans we make to other libraries, the more state aid we get?
Yes, we're called what I always say this every year we do it, but we're what's called a net lending library, which is desirable. It means that our collection is desired by other libraries and that we send a good part of our collection out to be used at other libraries in the state. And that's kind of a testament to the acquisitions work the library team does here. And I will say, I'm a proud member now actively as part of that team because when Pat left, I started, I'm like the primary multimedia buyer right now of all the DVDs. I think we're going to have another staff member help me with audiobooks a little bit more. But just doing one piece of the puzzle here is difficult and it takes a lot of time. And, Leah has taken on a lot of that work in the past couple of years. And our ILL statistics have only been better, I would say, as they were, so I'm proud of everybody. They are down a little bit year to year, but I think that's expected given the fact that we reopened to the public. We have a lot more of our users using our collection because they can come in physically and take things, which is also something we want to happen. So,
I think it's so impressive that we're so tiny, but yet, have such a desired collection. So good on all of you for that.
Tiny but mighty. That's what I always say.
Exactly.
All right, on that note, how about the pending library capital items, Ryan?
So this is just a revisit from the previous item last month. I said I was going to follow up with the MBLC construction team to get their feedback on the question that Mr. Malinowski had asked from the capital planning committee on whether or not we should keep the items in the capital plan. We got a response from Andrea Bunker. Andrea suggested giving the capital planning committee the feedback to push the planning and design out from, I believe it is in there for FY24, is it to FY25, and then to keep the construction money in the proposed year.
And that was 28, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she did mention that there is active legislation they're looking on. Marguerite and I had heard, because we try to keep up with the state communications, that there was going to be some sort of combined grant and that we wouldn't have to separate out a planning and design cycle with a construction cycle. Andrea did clarify that might be something they move to, but it is not currently the case. Is that it does look like there's going to be another planning and design cycle. So the idea of keeping that money as part of the projection is her recommendation. And I will say, I'll echo what Andrea said. I think it's a good idea to let Jason know to push it out for 1 year. 25 doesn't seem that far away to me now. Are you okay? I mean, we're literally in starting in September and October, we're going to start talking about the FY24 budget.
Yeah.
So I would agree, Marguerite.
This is 2 years away.
When we're talking about things to put in a town meeting warrant for FY25, believe it or not, we're going to be having that discussion in about a year from now.
So everybody, my fellow trustees, this is like fasten your seatbelts because this will be getting us into the building cycle. Are you ready for this, Ryan?
Since this is to clarify money that we're going to ask the town for in order to plan and design out what we would eventually do as part of a construction project. So because we're not actively going into construction, yes, I feel comfortable with that as part of the plan. This also does give me a year to kind of work on it and to think about all the things we would do. But, I think this is a good indicator that not all of this stuff happens right away, right? It's a good reminder. And then it does, but to Marguerite's point, we kind of have to look at planning stuff out and then looking at like, even if it says FY25 and that sounds really far away, it really isn't. The discussions start happening next year. In the
'Cause
fall.
we're in 23.
I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're in FY23 for the fiscal year. So,
All right. Okay, so other questions from anyone on this or no? How about the Ad hoc Community Center Exploration Committee?
before we move on, sorry, Marguerite,
No, go ahead.
I don't know how you want to handle this with the board, but Jace, if you remember the inquiry from Mr. Malinowski, which was over a month ago, he asked me to ask you where you were on this. So I did give you my recommendation, but I don't know if the board wants to take a formal position. I don't know if we want to go to each trustee individually just to get their feedback, but I need to get back to Mr. Malinowski. So I need to know.
Let's do it now. What I'm hearing you saying is that you would, the board would agree, if we do agree, to push the planning and design to FY25.
That is my recommendation as
With
library director.
construction planned for 28.
Yes.
All right, do I have I'll move that, let's vote on it. I'll move that will be our position. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, I guess that's Janet and Amy together. All right, and I will, Landry, aye, and then we've got trustee Ekberg,
Aye.
trustee Maney,
Aye.
trustee Davis,
Aye.
trustee Asdani,
Aye.
trustee Reagan.
Aye.
Okay, so that's unanimous, and we are there for planning and design for 25 and construction for 28, as it stands now, obviously.
But I just want to double check. You guys don't want to have any further discussion on this issue at this point. I mean, you can always re-raise it in a future agenda cycle. I mean, we're going to be talking about this again in a year, I can tell you. And we can always talk in advance of that. So let Marguerite and I know, I guess, if you want to talk about this sooner than next fall.
Do we
But
need
that
an
is the
update on it
feedback
at
I'll
every
give Mr.
meeting, since it's pretty major?
Sure. I can add it as a,
Part of the director's
if I have
report?
anything I have to report on, I can give it in the director's report. If Mr. Malinowski comes back with a response, I'm happy to report on that at the next meeting too. So I'm
Yeah, I
making
was
on
gonna
the
say-
agenda anyway.
Reports when there's news or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
it's-
Andrea's email did make it sound like that MBLC was working on legislation with the state and that there would be some sort of information coming out. There's also a library state construction listserv. So if you guys are not on that now and you would like to be, I can help you get on that. Marguerite gets those emails. I think a few of you do. You do have to opt into the list. So if you aren't on it, want to get on it, don't know how, contact me and I will help facilitate.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt to just, because the state, everything's sort of out of focus at the state level too, because they're waiting to finish how they're gonna fund a lot of these things. So if the out of focus trickles down to us, but FY25 is not that far off. So there we go.
Sorry, you tried to move on, Marguerite. And
Oh, I'm whatever. Thank you. How about the Ad hoc Community Center Exploratory Committee? Ryan, you want to explain where we are on that?
Well, we did say last meeting that we were going to revisit it. The full board is here for this meeting. Do we have a volunteer who would like to do it? I see Janet's hand raised. I would recommend that you guys have a discussion about Janet representing the library board so we can get back to Katie and formally let her know. This is another thing, Marguerite, it might not be a bad idea to vote on, I think, because I think you guys have to sort of formally have Janet go on the committee, right? I think other boards and committees are voting their members as the representative.
Do I need to leave the room?
No, but I think Janet, you will be, the vote of the trustees does also have to get confirmed by the select board. So I think that will happen at a future meeting. They are also, this is a good, for any member of the public who's watching this, this is also good to mention that I believe the ad hoc community center committee is having trouble finding just general community members who would volunteer for this. So it's taken a while for people to get
Well,
the boards and committees.
job, right?
Yeah, but they also need members of the public. So if you know anybody, who wants to be on a temporary committee, who's a community member, let them know about this. And if they volunteer for it, I know the town has actively been trying to find people, and it has been somewhat difficult over the summer. So
Well, basically, also to put it in translation, it is what to do with the Woodward School Committee.
Thank you, Janet, for putting your hand up on this, because I don't think it's going to be an easy or fun endeavor. So we appreciate you. Let's just make it clear. We appreciate you.
Maybe I'll rethink this. No.
Okay, forget what I said, except for we
Too
appreciate
late,
you.
too late.
I
too
don't know
late.
that it'll be that. I've been in some really dreary committees before. I don't think it'll be that bad. It's kind of interesting to hear in detail about other groups' needs and desires and stuff, put ours in perspective. So
To be honest, I think this is a great way for the library to have a regular interface with the senior center, with the recreation department. We don't always get the opportunity to see people from the groups. I don't always get a chance to see the other department heads, who I think are also going to be ex officios on this committee. So I think this is a great way for Janet and I to also be able to have those interactions with those other people in town who have missions that are similar to ours in serving the public. So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. That is all true. And as I understand it, one of the main reasons that the library has a rep on this exploratory committee is whether or not to move some or all of the library functions into that building, correct? So
I
this
think that is one of the things.
that is one of the
might
things,
come under
right?
discussion. I think how a library presence in that building would look,
Yeah.
like whether or not it's a completely separate service, right? Like what if one of the questions in Eris is, does the library have a homework center, right? What if there was some sort of like homework or after school center that we looked at potentially as part of that could be partnered with Youth and Family and Rec as an example. So I think there's different avenues that we could look at. I think there's a lot of things that could be under discussion for this.
Right, and as we know, our staffing can't cover one building, never mind two, so that's another part of it, right?
So we probably, if we do utilize space in another place, or even just theoretically, if the library were to move to a larger space, I think staffing is going to be a big part of that discussion, because you're right, Marguerite, we would potentially
We
have
would
to
need
maybe
at
hire
least two more
people.
people, yeah, at least. So this is big. All right, so if,
Marguerite?
yes.
Oh,
Kim,
I
go
just
ahead.
have a question on how this would work. So would Janet attend meetings and then I guess give us updates, and then she would represent the thoughts of the board? Is that how this is structured?
That's a really good question, and I would
that's how
hope
I see
so.
it. I mean, I was thinking of in participation of this, like, I don't think that any of the people representing, like Rec or me or that should be like chair of the committee. I think it needs to be somebody more objective, because I think we're there to represent, it's not just to take a global view, it's to represent the groups that we're there for.
What are the options? The other part of this, Janet, is that I know, I'm pretty sure anyway, that all of the trustees have different ideas about whether or not to move part or all of the library into Woodward.
Mhm.
So you're going to be basically representing 5 other points of view as
Right.
well as your own, and I think that's what we're perfectly confident that you can do.
Yeah, I think there has to be a lot of conversations about that.
Right. So that you would be able to say 3 people think this is a good idea and 3 people think this is a terrible idea.
But I also don't see this just as applying to Woodward. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we're the de facto community center for this community for everybody under 65.
Most
You know?
definitely.
There isn't another one. So it's what of those things belong. I mean, if they're talking about a separate community center, which of those things belong there, which are ours, which should be, you know, it's a broader question than just where does the library sit? It's what the function is, I think. And that's not just for me to speak to.
We have a lot of active clientele that are over 65 too. So I would say.
I understand.
They have
Yeah,
the
time-
senior center where everybody else, I agree, Janet, like I've always said, our library is like our family room or our living room where everybody comes. They don't go visit the brand new public safety building. If you're in town, you don't just go check out the public safety building unless that's your thing, but you will go to the library from other towns. So. Although I
So
was
Kim-
checking out on our trip across the country, libraries and safety buildings. but-
Libraries and safety buildings, you give voice things. So I guess Kim's question is, how is Janet going to represent us and report back to us? And I
Janet
throw
and
that open to the
Ryan.
board.
Yeah, because
And Ryan. Ryan's on
we
it as
should
well.
mention, they're making department heads that are affected too, or potentially affected, I guess,
Mhm.
as ex officios. So my understanding, Kim, and I may be wrong because the committee is still new and hasn't met yet, but I think they're gonna have discussion topics. And then kind of how I envisioned it was that Janet, and if she wants me to help, we can structure sort of like mini reports as agenda items on what the outcomes of those meetings are, so that we can keep the entire board up to date. I think if any decision or outcome comes that the entire library would be affected, that you guys would have to make a decision as a group, as the Board of Library Trustees.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if this committee, it's an exploratory committee. So I don't exactly know what the structure is going to be at this point, because it also expires. It has a half-life.
Next
It's gonna
June.
meet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll
So
probably extend it. I have a feeling it's.
Yeah, I
So-
would see us sending out something to everybody of like what's being discussed, what's coming up, so you get a chance to think about it before the board meeting.
Mhm.
You know, I don't want to hit people with, because some of these things, you know, it takes a while to juggle a number of
Mhm.
different opposing factors. So I could see sending it out, giving you guys a chance to think about it before.
Yeah, and there's also the fact that the Neary school it's a kind of domino thing with the Neary school. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but it's definitely a discussion that the library we need more space. We just need more space. And
Mhm.
the homework room is just part of it. Every time we meet as a board, there's one more thing we realize we're not able to do because we don't have enough space. So, given that we would like to keep the conversation fluid between what's going on with those meetings and what you can report back to us, Janet, I think that we should vote now to confirm you as our representative. How does that go? And you can vote for yourself. I actually would recommend it. It's probably good for people, good for women to vote for themselves. Seriously. All right. Do I have a motion for Janet to be our representative?
I move.
Okay,
for Janet
Amy
to be our
moves second.
representative.
Who was the second? Sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay, that's Jane. All right. So, Trustee Maney, thank you. Trustee Davis,
Aye.
Trustee Reagan,
Aye.
Trustee Estani,
Aye.
Trustee Ekberg,
All right.
and Trustee Landry. Aye. All right, Janet. Congratulations, I think.
We'll see.
Anyway, thank you for taking this on. It is not small. All right, how about the library facade restoration project, which basically comes down to the state of the preservation restriction? Am I right on that, Ryan?
I think we already did that one, right? As part of the director's report, because I had to report in the bill anyway. So I
Okay.
think we're all set there.
All right, anybody have any questions on where we are? Okay, and then the space use policy and the outside grant review policy, I think those are both going to be tabled because they're still in the works.
Yeah, I don't have a draft of either. I was hoping to have the outside grant review policy for you this meeting, and the Amy Townsley's departure has I think maybe we'll look at if we can review a pending policy in October. If that's okay with you. I want to give myself a little bit more time.
Yeah, these are not
Yeah.
urgent. They'd be nice to get done, but they're not urgent, right?
Well, since so much of the September meeting is going to be the appointments of the new of either the new people or new person, I want to make
Yeah.
sure that we we divest the appropriate time to policy review that we need to, and it probably won't get done in one meeting. They usually don't. So
Right, and they are important, as we know from ongoing applications. All right, so let's move on to number 11 on the agenda, which is the Beginner's Guide to Southborough Library. Ryan, you want to tell us what?
sure. So just briefly, I mean, this was a little bit of a show and tell. I think the next two agenda items are, but Mariana this was a project actually that was suggested by Jane Davis a while ago to me. She showed me an example that Ashland had done that was very well put together. I've seen other examples at other libraries, which are little guides people get when they first get a library card. That basically is basically a little book about the library. So that was kind of our goal with this. I think Mariana did a tremendous job putting this together. I'm really happy with it. I wanted to, this isn't final. I think we wanted to, get the board's feedback. Because this was a project that Jane had suggested, I wanted to kind of gauge, if she was happy with the product at this point. And then, I know we might have a trustee suggestion on helping enhance it a little bit, which I think is fantastic. We're going to look at how it gets printed is one of the things I would say. We do know that it's a multi-page document that would be printed in color. So we might want to go to a printer and get some pricing on that and then see what the cost would be. I think
heavily toward digital copies. I'm sorry, I keep beating the drum, but I hate handing out paper. It's bad for the environment and it costs stuff. So
we would also make it available digitally too. That's it. So I was hoping to do both. If the board wants to just do digital only, that makes it a lot easier on my end. I can say
digital only, but I would say that I guess I'll have to see how other, obviously board members feel, but I think that should be our default. And then if somebody says, but I don't want a digital copy, or I don't know how to use a digital copy, then could we say, okay, here, as opposed to having stacks of stuff people can grab and then not use and lose and clutter the environment. And
I think a limited number of print copies, depending on how often they're getting distributed, would be part of a proposal if we go to a printer.
Yeah, I agree with Amy. I think it makes sense to have a digital version. I think for some patrons, a physical version would be helpful. And I'd be glad to help make any edits needed. I think Mariana did a great job of getting all of the most pertinent information. And I think it's a really great overview of everything that we offer. But just in terms of if we were to have a printed piece that we give out when people sign up for library cards, this is quite lengthy. I think that there are ways that we could edit it and in some ways refer to the website, especially for things that might change over time, like the list of museum passes or databases. So I think that there are ways that we can really highlight the types of things we have without listing every single thing, so that we can have maybe a much smaller handout that is cheaper to print and easier to get through. And maybe it's something that we have there that, the librarians show them when they're signing up for a card to say okay, do you want this? Or, would you prefer to, just get the link for the digital copy? And I think a lot of people would probably opt for that. But I think it's not the worst thing to have a brochure for people who may really prefer it this way.
They make good bookmarks. Kim, would you like to give the feedback on that? I know you worked on the town meeting handout several times and it was magnificent. Do you have the time, energy, and inclination to give your editorial feedback to Mariana on this?
Yeah, I'd be glad to work with her on it. I probably don't have the bandwidth to meet until September, but that's not that far away. So I'd be glad to meet with her and we can work on it together.
Well,
I don't think this is a time sensitive project. I think we can be very flexible about,
Yeah.
you know, it's taken a while to put this together, and I think a lot of your feedback, Kim, is very helpful. We did design this to be an exhaustive guide, but one of the discussion points that made it take longer is that some of the information in there is subject to change. And specifically the museum passes and the databases were highlighted as two of those things. So the minute you print something out, right, in 6 months, there could be different information. So that I never envisioned like doing like 200 of these. Like that doesn't really make a lot of logistic sense, because we don't want to be handing something out that's incorrect, even if it's incorrect a little bit, you know?
Yep.
So,
Is there a QR code on it anyplace?
no, but we talked about doing that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have a static permanent site on the
Mhm.
website yet, because we wanted to just go through kind of a review process with all of you. But that is definitely something that can be added.
I think in the future, all our handouts should have, we should link to QR codes just to join the, you know, the wave of the future. But also, I said it before, but I lose the papers by the time I get home. And if I scan it, then I have it forever. So I just think that's helpful for a lot of people. And most people are figuring out that you can hold your camera up to a QR code and there you go. So it's not highly difficult to use, I guess, is what I'm thinking. So.
Yeah, they're relatively easy to put on the flyer. The feedback that I can give you, that's the reason kind of why we don't do it as a default so far, is because, to be honest, they take up a significant amount of an 8x11 flyer, so that sometimes, like with the Alzheimer's program we're doing at the end of September, they can be wordy. So it's kind of yeah, it's because we try to have it big enough that somebody can scan it with their phone, but I think I can.
I was gonna
think
say,
I
I've
can
seen the
should
size
have-
of dimes, Ryan, that you can scan. Why do you need to make them big with your phone?
Okay, I'll make smaller ones.
No, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying, I know I've seen, like, just while we were gone, I was scanning a few things and they were lit, like they were the size of dimes. I don't know that it matters, but we could do a test of them and see, just put them on the counter and see if there's a way to like do temporary ones. And just as people check out, ask who's willing to see which ones, if the small ones are impossible for people to use, but otherwise the little ones could be helpful. I'm just offering my personal experience, not telling.
Okay, so we now have two good outcomes here. One, Kim has volunteered to help with the editorial, which I think is marvelous, and thank you for that. And the other is we have a QR discussion, which we really need to sort out, because the QR code is going to loom large in our future.
I think I'm just being maybe like a little bit defensive, only because I just printed all the fall flyers and put them throughout the library. But I will say Amy Townsley was the one that put together all the 8x11 flyers, and now that she's departing, I was going to have to kind of go through all of them. To your point, Amy, I think it would be extremely helpful if the QR codes that had like pre-registration required, like,
Yeah.
but like if we have a flyer and you need to register in advance, the QR code should definitely link to the registration. And we have quite a number of those for the fall. So it really is good feedback, to be honest. So thank you.
You know, I wasn't saying retrofit them, just when we make new ones, have QR.
You're right.
Okay, so we've used up an hour and 10 minutes and we're almost through the agenda. I am glad we can all go out and look at the beautiful day pretty soon. How about the YA collection diversity audit, which I was very impressed by.
Yes, so this was a project that Amy Townsley completed in her recent academic program. I really just wanted to highlight this. The outcomes that were a part of this project, since she used our library as the case study. You know, Mariana and I have gone through this, and we're planning on implementing some of the recommendations that Amy came out with. So I mean, this is kind of bittersweet because Amy did a lot of work here on behalf of the library, and I just wanted to kind of highlight that some of that work is going to help us moving forward. So we appreciate it. Also, because we had all the DEI conversations, I think was it last summer or was it 2 summers ago? But we remember we passed the diversity statement. So this is something that has not gone away. It was 2 years ago. So this has not gone away in our minds. This is something we're still actively thinking about, and we're looking at ways to enhance our collection. So that is
So-
what this project highlights.
One part that I didn't see in there, I don't know whether I did or not, but over the entire publishing industry of books that are offered, are the percentages there the same as they are for Southborough, which is basically 80% white?
I think things are trending in a better direction.
Yeah.
I think historically, they haven't been in that direction.
All right. Well,
They
we're
have
on the
been more
case.
like, they have been like more 80% or more.
Okay.
Um,
And there was one thing in that I sort of took issue with, and I wrote it down. And it said something, there was a little bit that said, young adults need to see, or they need to connect to books because books are like mirrors. They need to see themselves in there. And all I could think of was like, one of my favorite authors is James Baldwin. I do not have a lot in common with him in terms of the way I appear in the world. I am not brilliant. I am not gay. I am not a black guy, right? But he's not a mirror, but he's a really, really profound human being. So I'm going to question that sentence.
I think
You
she
like
made
me?
more
I
the
think-
mirror of your soul type thing. And I
Yeah,
think
or just, I mean, we're all human, right? I mean, it shouldn't be like, oh, if you're a certain type of person, you should be reading a certain type of book so you can see yourself there. If
Right.
anything, you should be reading a type of book that isn't you.
Marguerite,
Right.
I think in her presentation, there was a counterpart to that, is that mirror was one piece, but I think it said that books also should be like a window, which is, I think, the situation you're talking about, that it's a window into other people's perspectives. So I do think that's accounted for in that, but I could go back and check.
Maybe it is.
I
Maybe
think-
I just saw that one thing and I just went into, oh no, wait, and I didn't read the rest.
Yeah,
I think the spirit of it was that representation matters, right? And that
exactly.
Okay, good.
you want to have your collection be representative also of the population of the library, which is varied, right? But to your point, Marguerite, I often read content in books from people who are kind of outside my experience. And that's part of, I think, the joy of literature, right? Is that, or even nonfiction, is that you can kind of go to a different place or a different world or expose yourself to new ideas through books. And that is part of the reason I think we're all here, right?
And learn new things. Exactly, Ryan. I mean, like, you may not be able to slide into somebody else's skin, but reading from their perspective may open, I think it may expand people whose minds are not yet expanded, or give opportunities to learn new things. So I think that's what she was saying. And I agree with you, Kim. I think it becomes clear in another part, but
All right, okay, then I'll stop heavy breathing on that one. And it wasn't really heavy breathing, I'm just joking. I'm just saying that I thought a book would get you out of your comfort zone into somebody else's life. That's the,
I think both of those things are really important. It was girls in my neighborhood, the sisters, who wrote that scathing report of their experience
In high
growing up.
school. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
growing up Black in this community. And, for kids like that, and before that, we had somebody else in the neighborhood who was like part of our family, who used to say, Diversity Day would come, and they'd all of a sudden look at her. And it was, I think they need to see, especially children, need to see themselves in starring roles, and, and have it be people that look like them. I think both of those things are really important, particularly for kids.
now this is a really interesting discussion, and I hope we can continue it partly using Amy's report, her audit, as a jumping off point, because she really did the valuable thing of looking at what our collection is actually doing, which I think is fantastic. So thank you, Amy. Anyway.
There are no members of the public present for public comment. Mr. Sam Stivers had joined us for the beginning part of the meeting, but I think he must have had to drop off, possibly for something else. So he's not with us any longer, and we have no attendees right now.
All right. So are there any other questions, comments, complaints from the board?
Someone's raising their hand.
No,
I have-
everyone's like, I
You
want to
don't
get out of
want,
here.
right?
What is it, Amy?
I said, don't ask for things you don't want.
I am sorry. I'm probably going to need to take at least 10 to 15 minutes. I have two additional things that have come up since I sent out the materials. I have been working with a community member named Karen Anglem, who's a library user, and she's a fantastic person. But we have been trying to work together on doing a mobile blood drive that could, so a van that could park utilizing the library's parking lot because of its central location in town. She was initially trying to work with the Children's Hospital. That so far has not worked out. So she reached out to other hospitals that have mobile vans. We were going to kind of plan it out on a Monday so that the library could partially be open. Because we've kind of had to pivot a couple times in the discussions. We
Is
are
she
now.
with the Red Cross or is she with an organization? Sorry.
She's just
not-
a local resident.
She's just a local resident. We did have her
Not
connect.
just.
Yeah, so we've had her connect with the Board of Health so that they're aware of the plan here. She's talked to, I believe it was Nurse West, but we've confirmed with Dr. Alcar. All of this is above board. You know, there is not a great location, including the library. You know, there are limitations in this building. We couldn't really effectively run a blood drive and be open to the public in the same way that we are. So the idea of a mobile van, I think, is appealing. We're hoping to do this in the early part of the fall, but it's now looking like the best day. And it was going to be on a Monday, but now I think it isn't. The day that we're kind of looking at is Thursday, December 1st. And I did mention this as something I wanted to check in with you guys about once we were looking more and more at a date. So we can have more information in the September meeting that I can report on, and we can add this as an agenda item. But I wanted to confirm they're going to need space for the van at the end of the parking lot. And there's probably going to be about 5 staff members who need to park in the parking lot. The only program that really potentially conflicts is the morning toddler time. I'm gonna talk to Kim. It's her baby and toddler time that she does as a weekly standard program. We may look at trying to continue that program in the morning. It might not conflict if we scheduled the blood drive a little bit after. I think we could do the baby and toddler time in the library and still have the blood drive setting up and going on outside. It will be, I think, kind of in the late morning up until probably about 7 o'clock in the evening. So it would run almost the full gamut of the day. And then one of the considerations is the mobile van, I think, does not have like restroom facilities because of their setup. So it is appealing that if people needed, like, you know, to go to the bathroom, that the library would be open and that would be an option for them. So I just wanted to kind of gauge, I guess, the initial concerns you might have about this. I'm hoping that it's okay with the board if I proceed with pursuing.
I have 2 questions. Do you know if this is just on, is it for her Girl Scout troop or just because, do you know?
I believe it is not associated with the Girl Scout troop.
Okay, just
I
curious.
think this is because there is a shortage
Yep.
of donors, like not
Yeah.
just in Massachusetts, but
Everywhere.
nationwide.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, you know, I have read, I think, some of the same articles that Karen has. I know that I think the Board of Health is somewhat, the staff over there is supportive of this, because I think that, you know, we need people to donate. And
Yeah,
this,
Karen's a good person, period. So I think it's a great idea. I support it. The only question I was thinking was if you're worried about parking spaces, maybe we ask St. Mark's if the staff of the van could park in that lot right next to the library that they just did. But other than that, I mean, you know. not a
yeah,
problem.
I mean, that might be a possibility. I don't think our during the baby and toddler times, our parking lot gets a little full, but it's never completely full. I do think that if we kind of set up at the end of the parking lot, I really don't see a potential conflict. We might see if Kim could potentially move it to Friday that week so that there isn't a concurrent program, so then parking is not an issue, that we have plenty of time to work that out, I would say. So, you know, I don't think, because we're kind of working with another like a hospital organization on this, the date is somewhat, you know, they can do it on a certain day. And I think we would try our best to make that work.
Does this need to get run by Mark Purple or anything like that, or the Board of Selectmen?
I think the Board of Health is the entity that we would check with. I would notify the town administration. Also, we would want their help, to be honest, in marketing this event, so that the community would know about it, so that they could come to the library. I mean, it is nice that people could like come, they could do their library business, and then they could donate blood, or vice versa. I think it is nice because it is to kind of, to the points that have been raised, we are kind of a community central point, right? So I think this makes sense. It'll be very visible from the intersection. You know, the library does have kind of a marketing machine that we can put this through to get the word out. So I think it's a win-win all around. Karen was the one who initiated this conversation. And I would just say, I'm really happy that she reached out, and then she thought of the library as a place for this.
Okay, other board members' thoughts?
I don't really see a downside, so, you know.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah,
I highly
think
support it.
that's
I
a good
think it's
idea.
wonderful. We're expanding our mission to the town to provide blood, which is
Brian,
in short supply.
One other thing is, I convinced Karen to be on the Southborough Village Society board with me. It just dawned on me. So both of us as probably board members could also allow parking for staff over in that side lot on Corderville, if need be. Just dawned on me. So, you know, we have the ear of the community house. So if we need something, let Karen can affect that as well as I, but
Yeah, that's good. Or the
That's fine.
townhouse has parking. Or
Yeah.
I think it's good to plan out all these possibilities, but again, I don't anticipate an issue even if we do hold the program. I think whether or not Kim would want to while the blood drive is going on is a separate question I'm gonna work with her on. So if we've had to move baby and toddler times to Fridays or to other days before, that is definitely a possibility. You know, I do worry a little bit just about the temperature in a December, even though it's December 1st, it will be colder outside. And I thought about like maybe doing it with library patrons, but since we're gonna have like mothers and caregivers with very young children, I didn't want our patrons to have to park kind of across the street or like up at the townhouse is the other option, because people could park up there.
no, I
too.
meant for the staff of the van, not the patrons. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how crazy the staff of the van is going to be about parking and walking, but that's something we
yeah,
can.
there's usually going to be what, like 5-6 people. Anyway, do you want us to take a vote? I think we're all supportive.
Well, I just need to know if it's okay with you guys to proceed, and then I will have more information in September for you.
Yeah, so I encourage you very much to proceed. I think it's a great idea.
Well, I'll address parking with Karen. That'll be my next conversation.
I
good
think
to bring
that's
up.
logistics, but it's not any
Yeah.
kind of a deal breaker. I think that'd be wonderful to have a bloodmobile van in the middle of the library parking lot for an afternoon.
Okay,
If it goes
sorry.
well, I would say if it goes well, that could be like a twice a
Annual
year
thing,
thing that we
yeah.
do. So
Right.
I think we're already thinking, if this is successful, to look at potential dates in February,
Yeah,
because that's a big month.
That's
So,
You know,
great.
years ago, there used to be a regular blood drive in Southborough. I can't remember where it was.
yeah, it was coordinated with the Board of Health. I
Yeah.
think they did it. They tried to do it out of Corderville Hall at the senior center. I think
Right.
that's what it was.
they
Yeah.
probably have their hands a little full in the last year or two, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a wonderful idea. Now, what was your other
I have one more
other
thing.
item you were going to bring up, Brian?
One last thing, sorry. I was contacted yesterday by Kevin Miller, who is the new chair of the Southborough Historic Commission. The town did apply for ARPA funds to do signage for the new, it's not new, it's been established a couple years ago, but we're now part of a historic district in the downtown. The sign was specifically for I guess road signs that they're going to be doing, but there was some flexibility in the grant to do some building signs. if that was something people wanted to pursue. So the townhouse was listed as a location, as was the library. I had an extended conversation with Mr. Miller yesterday. He was very nice to give me his time and to go over all of this with me. One of the feedback pieces I gave him is that we also have been in off and on discussions with the Community Preservation Committee about doing a sign that denoted the project, right? The Facade Restoration project, and that it had been funded by the citizens of Southborough out of CPA. So I asked if that language could be added to the district, the historic district sign, because I do feel like those two things, while not exactly the same, are on the same wavelength. And if we look at a permanent sign, that we would want to highlight the CPC's investment in the building. So I'm still talking to Mr. Miller. I think we would come up with a potential mock-up of what the sign would look like and what it would say. We did look at the signage examples that were provided by CPC for the Concord sign, and we adapted the language accordingly to include.
The Concord Library, you mean?
Yeah, so this is also something where, you know, I wanted to check in with you guys. I wanted to let you know that the sign is now something that we'll probably review in a future meeting. And then also to see how you would feel. I mean, we could do a completely separate sign for the CPC project. That's still an option, but a question about how to pay for the sign will come up, because we don't exactly know where the funding is going to come from, whether that be out of the CPC's project or not. So,
Well, the other part of it, Ryan, we already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 signs on the library already, so that would be 7 and 8.
well, and also the thing that I noted to Mr. Miller in a communication this morning
I think
is
7
that
would be.
because there has been a little bit of a, well, should we do separate signs? Should it all be on the same sign? But it has been requested by Mark Purple on behalf of the Southborough Accessibility Committee that we explore doing a sign about my update that says that there's accessibility areas on the Southborough Library website for the story walk. So I think we're going to be doing another outdoor sign for the story walk. So to me, to reduce sign congestion on the building, and since again, we're looking at, we may actually place this, there is a place on the library sign underneath the historic windows that looks like it was almost designed to put a sign. So we're kind of eyeballing that area in particular. I think if we can—
That is not handicap accessible.
Well, we don't need a sign to be hit, like the sign itself will just, you know, denote the historic district and the project. So that's what we need, I think. So I'm just—
Oh, go ahead, finish.
Oh, no, you go ahead, Amy.
Well, my question was, you said for signage. So our little sign out front is horrible. The one that's the fake brick leg that doesn't show anything. You don't know you're going by the library. So could that be renovated and then we find money for these other signs somewhere else? Because I assume, or a new one of those big and bold and historic, and because that clearly isn't a historic, make it look more, you know, appropriate.
Could I jump in here? Because
Sure.
Amy, yes, that is a very good point. Could we put the signage for the library on as an agenda item for our next meeting? Because we're running over 90 minutes now, and I
Sure.
think that this is easily a 20-minute discussion.
Yeah.
So thank you, and maybe everybody can think about signage, and we can put it on the agenda for next time.
Does it need to be answered before the next meeting, Ryan? That's the only thing.
I can give him the feedback that we're gonna have to, that you guys want to discuss it in September. That's
Yeah,
fine.
it's part of it's part of a larger
It's part of a
situation that we
larger
have.
issue. I think this is way too much to start at this.
Yes,
moment.
exactly. Yeah.
I'm just letting you know I was contacted and they have
Yeah,
money
and that's good.
available.
And I think it's going to be great. We just have to, we really have to get our signs under control
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
Right, Jane?
I agree.
It's like a store for signs out there and part of it.
Yeah,
Anyway,
well, we made some mistakes in the past and we can rectify those going forward, but not today.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn,
I
Jane?
would say Jane's out of patience.
It's a big topic and I just feel like.
Yeah, and after
totally
90 minutes,
agree.
the efficiency quotient goes way down.
Yeah.
So, okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
My motion.
Okay, that's Amy. Do I have a second?
Come on, Jane.
I'll second it, please.
All right, Trustee Maney,
Aye.
Trustee Davis,
Aye.
Trustee Reagan,
Hi.
Trustee Yazdani,
Aye.
Trustee Ekberg,
Aye.
Trustee Landry, aye. All right, that carries. We are adjourned. It is 12:30 p.m. and our next meeting is going to be on September 16th that's a Friday at 11 a.m.
Enjoy the rest of your summer, everybody.
Yes, those long afternoons are getting shorter.
Library signage will be a topic, but it'll
Yes.
be after we do the appointments for the new.
Oh, definitely.
Hooray. Okay, looking forward. Thank you, everybody, for all this wonderful work you've done.
Bye.
See you in a month. Bye.
Aye.
Okay. Ryan,
Yes.
remember the phone call when we were sitting at the townhouse, the phone thing I got saying I owed $497 for some computer support?
Yeah. Did you figure out what it was for?
Spam.
Well,
Unfortunately, I called the number before I then Googled it and found out it was spam. But yeah, this guy wanted me to hand over control of my computer to them so they could cancel it for me. It's like, no, I'm not doing that.
well, at least you got to the bottom of it. That's good.
Yep.
And they didn't get swindled, which I think is also positive. So
$497. Do they get anybody?
I don't know. That's like such a specific amount.
Yeah. I know it. All right. See ya.
All right.